If there's one thing that's abundantly clear, it's that people have a broad range of opinions when it comes to AI, and photographers are no exception. Now, I'm not here to sway you in one direction or another. I absolutely have my own thoughts on AI as it relates to photography, and it's something I'd be happy to share over a cup of coffee. But for the purposes of this channel, my singular goal is to help you get the most out of Lightroom to help you improve your photo editing experience. Now, I brought up AI because I feel like there's some confusion over what that actually means in the context of Lightroom. I think that most of the times when we hear or see something about AI, it has to do with generative AI. And while Lightroom does skim along the generative AI surface, there are actually a host of non generative AI tools within the app that have fundamentally changed how I edit my photos for the better. So, for this video, I'm sharing my 6 favorite AI tools in Lightroom. My hope is that this will add clarity to any preconceived notions of what AI in Lightroom is and is not, and why these tools should absolutely have a place within your editing workflow. All right, let's dive in. All right, so let's look at my top 6 favorite AI tools in Lightroom. And looking at this photo right here, it might not be hard to guess what the number one tool is. And the reason why I have it in the number one spot is I apply it to most of my images, and it happens to sit at the top of the AI edit order of operations list. Now, don't worry, if you don't know what that is, I will leave a link to that video. It's a deep dive video all about that order of operations at the end of this one. I highly recommend you watch it. So, just looking at this photo here, you can see if I zoom in, we've got noise. So, I took this not too long ago, just a couple of days ago, actually, with the Sony A1 Mark II, the Sony 400 to 800 millimeter lens, and I was at ISO 2500. The reason for that is because I wanted to make sure I got as fast of a shutter speed as I could. The lens was wide open based on the given focal length of almost 800 millimeters. And so you can see here, we've got noise, and that's okay. I know that we get noise at this high of an ISO, even though the image was exposed well. And so to apply denoise, it's pretty straightforward. You just go to the edit stack over here. You'll scroll down to detail, and then right here is denoise. Now, denoise currently works with supported RAW and DNG files. So all you need to do is click on it. And you can see if we zoom in, I mean, at the default strength of 50, I already see a notable improvement. Of course, one of the things I love about the recent update to how we apply denoise is that we get a real-time preview and we can adjust the amount on the fly. So here I can go ahead and increase the strength if I want to really kind of dial that in. And there we're really good to go and watch if we kind of just toggle the before and the after. One of the most important things that I want to highlight is not only are we getting rid of the noise, removing the noise doesn't come at the expense of getting rid of those kind of high frequency details in kind of like the fine feathers here. Like all of that is still preserved. The eye is really sharp. The beak is really sharp. All of the kind of stuff floating on the water is really sharp. And so again, denoise is so important because I take a lot of bird photos, and often I am at these really high ISO levels. And so just being able to kind of quickly mitigate the noise without removing detail is super important. Now, this is not a generative AI feature. We're not actually introducing pixels into the photo, but it is an AI tool. So that's just something to consider. And I'm really okay with that. Like for me, having an AI tool here that does this wonderful job, it's just fantastic. Now, I've seen questions about whether you can batch apply denoise after we move to this new workflow. Of course you can, and I've got this video right here. So if you want to check that out, you can do that. So let's now move on to my second favorite tool, and that is Gen Remove. Now, Gen Remove actually is a generative AI feature. That's what the gen is in Gen Remove, Generative Remove. We're actually taking the image and sending it to Firefly and using generative AI to kind of remove whatever you make in your stroke on your image. So what I mean by that is, let's go ahead and go to the remove section here. You can see I have use generative AI selected. If I don't have this selected and I go ahead, I'm going to make a larger brush and I make a stroke. So I'm going to go ahead here and I want to get rid of this leaf. So just like this. You can see it does an okay job. It's not perfect. Like you can see the seams and stuff. So not especially great. And this is using the content aware heal method. That was basically what we had in Lightroom before we added generative remove. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that stroke. And now I'm going to turn on generative AI. And I'm going to make the same basic stroke. Now what I'll do is click on remove. And what happened here is Lightroom sent the photo to Firefly to use generative AI to fill this area in. And so you can see one of the key differences between using the content aware heal brush and generative remove is that you get 3 different variations. So you can see here as I toggle between these, like that one looks great. This one also looks good, but I think I like this one here. Let's just toggle the before and the after. So that's the original image. That's the after image. So for the most part, I think this did a wonderful job because look, like, yeah, you can have this photo. Totally. This is fine. But for me, that leaf just was bothering me. It was a huge distraction. And so, yeah, I'm using generative AI, but in this case here, I'm using it to remove an area from the image and basically try to figure out what was behind the leaf over here. I am totally okay with that. Now, of course, listen, in terms of generative AI, this is where I think a lot of the debate is happening. If this is just not your cup of tea, then by all means, don't use it. However, for someone who is just here to enjoy the process of editing my photos, I am not a photojournalist. I am not entering this photo into a contest where the rules state that you can't use any sort of generative AI. This is just a photo I took. I enjoyed it. I wanted to edit it so I can share it with family and friends. And so for me, again, when I look at this, yeah, this is fine, totally fine. But this is a lot better to me. It's just a lot cleaner of an image. Now, of course, if the 3 variations aren't to your liking, you can go ahead and click on this generate button and you'll get 3 more variations here. Like, actually, I like this one even better, so I'll stick with that one. Now, there is an honorable mention as far as gen remove, which is in the number 2 spot, and that is distracting people removal because it's effectively the same thing in that it's using Firefly to remove certain strokes. The key difference is with gen remove, you have to manually make your strokes. But here, let's use this photo as an example. I actually just took this the other day specifically because I wanted to illustrate this feature. If I go to the remove panel again, instead of making manual strokes, let's say there were a bunch of other people here. When you expand people here under distraction removal, Lightroom will use AI to automatically identify those distracting people. And it makes the selection for you, which is really great, especially if you have a bunch of different people. And then when I click on remove, it's the same thing as if I were to make the manual stroke here using Firefly. You can see it did a great job of getting rid of those people. If I click on this area here, we have variations just like we had before. And so like this one looks great. It's as if those people were never there. All right, coming in at the number 3 spot. Honestly, if Denoise wasn't so important in terms of the order of operations, I think this might be my number 1 spot, and that is adaptive masks. I think adaptive masks have changed the game in terms of how I use Lightroom to edit my photos because it uses AI to intelligently identify various elements and attributes in an image and make the selections for me. Because normally, back in the day when all I had was like an adjustment brush or the gradient tools, it would be a very laborious process. But using AI now to make the selections for me, like there's no argument in my book against it. Like, why wouldn't I want some sort of help to speed up the selection process and make it more accurate? So here, let's look at this photo that I took in the Dolomites region of Italy. I'm going to go to the masking panel here, and you can see the adaptive masks are up here. So the subject, sky, and background. But we also have landscape, and if people were detected in the shot, they would be over here. So what does adaptive mean? Well, it means exactly what it sounds like in that it will adapt to the contents of the image. So let's say I clicked on sky. Well, Lightroom uses AI to look at the image and say, oh, there's a sky here, and I'm going to make this selection for you. If I were to open a whole different image that has a sky, but it's a different sky, well, Lightroom would adapt the selection. It knows that you want to select the sky, but it's going to select the sky for that image instead of just making the exact same selection here on that photo. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this mask here because what I want to show you is just like adaptive masking to the next level. And especially if you are a landscape photographer, this is huge. I'm going to go ahead and click on landscape. And what Lightroom is going to do is it's going to use AI to identify various attributes in the photo, and it will list out what it found. So you can see there's sky. Now, here's what's also super cool. It actually found like the different various architectural structures in the image. So I'm going to make a selection there. It found vegetation, so all the trees there. And new to Lightroom 9.0 and Lightroom Classic 15.0 is the snow attribute. So it will detect if there's snow in the image, and I'm going to go ahead and click on create. And now I have my 4 different masks. So I can quickly go ahead and, for example, with snow, maybe I want to make that a little bit brighter. Maybe I want to warm that up a bit. And then I'll go to the architecture, also increase exposure there, maybe add a little bit of texture to that. And so I hope you see where I'm going with this, is that using AI to make these adaptive selections quickly and easily, it just speeds up the workflow so that instead of wasting all that time making these selections, using a brush to select the sky or trying to find all the different architecture or, the trees within the image, all you need to do is use a little bit of AI to make that selection for you. It's not making any edits for you, mind you. That's still all on you. Like here, I can go ahead and increase the exposure, maybe open the shadows up, maybe warm up those trees a bit. Basically, these AI-powered adaptive masks get me to where I want to be quicker, which is actually editing and not spending time making all of these different selections. Now, before we move on to the next AI tool, I actually want to show you just how ridiculously awesome these adaptive masks are. We worked on this image just before with Denoise, but watch what happens when I go here to masking and I use the adaptive subject mask, which will basically look at the image and Lightroom will attempt to identify the subject. I'm going to click on it and look at this. I mean, Lightroom was intelligent enough to not only select the bird, but the bird's reflection in the water. This to me blows my mind. Like, honestly, when I think about the potential of AI in Lightroom, it's this kind of stuff that gets me so excited. I hope you kind of hear just how excited I am over it because, I mean, spending the time to make this selection and also remembering to make the selection of the reflection because you kind of want to have that symmetry of edits, to me, this is brilliant. And so all I can do right now really quickly is just, make it a little bit brighter, maybe go ahead, add some texture, tiny bit of clarity, and it's just looking great. And again, it's only being applied to the bird and its reflection. All right, so in the number 4 spot, this is also a relatively new tool that we just added to Lightroom at Adobe Max last month. And it's something that I, for one, am thrilled to have because I've needed it for many years. And that is auto dust removal, specifically sensor dust and lens dust. So I took this photo recently on a trip with the ACR team to Sequoia National Park, and I was changing my lenses a bunch. And so you can kind of see, there is some dust over here. I mean, there's dust throughout the image. And yes, I could go ahead and manually remove this by going to the remove panel here and just using the brush. Or I can go to distraction removal over here, expand dust, and then click on apply. And you can see the dust that was removed from the image automatically. Now, a point of clarity, AI is being used to detect the dust spots in the image, but it's using content-aware heal to actually fill in those spots. It's not using generative remove to fill those spots. It's using the tool that was available in Lightroom before generative remove was added. And so it's not exactly generative AI. It is AI, again, detecting the spots, but it doesn't find all the spots all the time. And so that's why we have this visualize spots checkbox here, because you'll see here any lingering spots. And so what I can do now is take my brush size, make it a little bit smaller, something like that. And then I could just use the brush to manually make additional spots to refine the selections. All right, so for the number 5 spot, this is a brand new tool that we added to Lightroom last month at Adobe Max, just like dust removal, except it is a component of assisted culling, and it's called auto stacking by visual similarity. So you can see here, this is basically everything that I selected from a shoot that I went on just a couple of days ago at a nearby wetlands preserve. And so let's say I want to go ahead and stack these images. You can see that there are similarities, like there's different kind of bursts of these various birds. What if I wanted to create stacks for these images? Well, I can use AI to help with that. If I open up the Photos panel here and I expand assisted culling, you'll see we have this section here called Stack. Now, this is a quick important point. This is available in Lightroom Classic, and it's also available in Lightroom Desktop, as I'm showing to you right now, but it's only available in the cloud library. So if you're using Lightroom local, you can use assisted culling, but stacking is not currently supported there. So you have to have your images in your cloud library to use this. But here you can see if I select visual similarity over here, what Lightroom will do is it'll use various AI models to attempt to group images together based on varying criteria. Now, if I take this slider here and I bring it to the right, it's basically going to make images that are not similar at all stack together, which is what I don't want. I actually want to go in the opposite direction. And so I'm going to start slowly bringing this over to the left, and I'm looking at the stacks. Like I could see here, here's a stack that it created. And yes, you can see these are actually visually similar. Same thing here. Let's look at this little alligator. Yep, 2 photos of the alligator. Let's look at the vulture over here. Yep, there's the vulture flying. And if I bring this more to the left, as I do, it's basically making the criteria more strict. So the images have to be really similar in order to be stacked together. So I think right around here, maybe right there, this is good. Like, again, let's just look at this stack over here. This is of this heron in flight. And it's helpful because it basically organizes these bursts or these individual scenarios with the birds for me. I don't have to do this manually. And so once I'm happy with the overall stacking, all I need to do is click on Create Stack here, and Lightroom will commit the stacks. And not only does it create the stacks, but let's say I go and I open this stack again. It also selects what it thinks is the strongest or best image in the stack. So here it thinks this one, rightfully so, is the best image because it was already edited and it looks the best. But of course, I can override this by right-clicking and then selecting Set as Stack Cover, and that will override the stack cover with whatever you prefer. All right, for my 6th and final favorite AI tool in Lightroom, I admit this is one that I don't use often, but when I need it and I use it, it is such a game changer, and that is a lens blur. So lens blur can be found at the bottom of the edit stack in Lightroom. It's right over here. And what it does is it uses AI to estimate depth. So it creates a depth map, basically telling you what's close and what's far away. Once that depth map is created, it applies a blur treatment to that area. Now you can control where the blur is applied in terms of what's close and far away using this focus range tool. So you can see over here, it blurred out this tree or this portion of the tree that's closest to me, which I actually want in focus. And so I can restore focus by taking this left bumper here and dragging it to the left. Now, another thing that I can do is kind of control the shape of the bokeh. So if we zoom in here, actually, let me zoom out a bit to 100%. You can see that I can change the shape of the bokeh. So I actually like this. I think this is really cool, this bubble. But I can also give it more of an angular look. Same thing here with ring. This is a bit too distracting. And then there's this anamorphic look. I'll go ahead with round. I think it just looks good. I can also change the shape to simulate a cat's eye with this slider. So you can see how these shapes over here kind of look like cat's eyes. Again, really depends on your aesthetic. I find it a bit distracting, but overall, that looks great. And then here's the key. The default strength of 50, it's good to visualize where the blur is being applied, but I usually dial this back. Like I'll probably go more than halfway back. Let's dial it up a bit. So something like this. And so you can see if we toggle this, like it just does this beautiful job of separating the foreground from the background in a very natural way. And again, it's using AI to make that depth map. It's not using generative AI to put any pixels in the image. All right, so those are my 6 favorite AI-powered tools in Lightroom. 5 of them are just regular AI tools, and 1 of them is generative. Well, technically 2 if you count distracting people removal. Of course, I have plenty of favorite non-AI powered tools, so if that's a video you'd be interested in seeing, leave a comment below. Now, I mentioned how the purpose of this video, my hope at least, is to kind of shatter some preconceived notions about AI so that if you have this kind of visceral response against AI, my hope is that when you learn that actually a lot of the tools you're probably already using are AI powered, that it kind of softens your position, or at least it opens you up to consider AI tools, especially as we add more of them to Lightroom down the road. Now, this is just a small portion of Lightroom, like just a few of these tools. There's so much more to it, as well as Lightroom for mobile and web. So if you want to learn everything there is to know, please check out my course called Lightroom Everywhere. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. I mentioned how I also have this video here that will walk you through the AI edit order of operations. Definitely check that out, or you can see what YouTube thinks that you might like here. As always, a thumbs up is greatly appreciated, as is clicking on the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified of all future videos. Thanks a lot, everyone.